Okay, I'm rolling, and
All
so
right.
the first one is it's pretty generic. So can you just talk about the uptick in violence that we've seen so far in 2023?
2023, well, I wouldn't say there was an uptick in violence, but we have seen gun violence already this year, and that started with on New Year's Day at 12:02 in the morning was the first person to die by gunfire, and yeah, it's unacceptable. And as we saw over this weekend, we had a murder outside a club called Metro on Division Street, the south side of town, and John Tell White is the victim's name, father of two, and it's an open case, open investigation. We're going to do everything we can to bring that shooter to justice. We have had some other incidents. There was a domestic-related shooting also over the weekend where an individual forced his way into his ex-girlfriend's apartment and ended up shooting an adult male in there, really in the presence of officers. When officers were flagged down, she said there was a man that had pushed his way inside my house, and as the officers went to approach, he actually shot her friend on the porch in the presence of the officers, who then surrounded the house and miraculously, through patience and negotiation, were able to take him into custody as well. They took that man who had been shot in the chest very critically and put him in a police car and drove him to the hospital. They gave him first aid on scene and got him there, and he's expected to make full recovery.
Okay.
So,
yeah, are we seeing any specific trends with the violence?
what we saw in there, we had three pretty significant incidents. I mentioned the death rate pretty much at the turn of the year at 12:02 on New Year's Day, and then we had a murder which appeared to be a very targeted murder outside the club on Division Street. Then we had a domestic-related incident on the 1000 block of Alto Southeast. So three very different incidents. That first death, it seems very apparent that it was celebratory gunfire. It was a group of friends who were shooting off their guns together, most likely an accidental shooting. Of course, we still look at it from the potential of being a homicide, and we'll continue to do so until we have all the answers. But three very distinct, different situations. So as far as trends, it's not something that we're seeing, fortunately.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you probably talked about this, the January 15 shooting. That was.
Remind me which one that was.
Well,
on Alto? Okay. Yeah.
It says, talk about the response to the January 15 shooting where an officer had to transport the victim. Is that common?
So, on January 15th, officers were in the area of the 1000 block of Alto, and actually a woman came out. So she saw the police car, and she flagged the officers down. She let them know that a man had pushed her way inside her house, and as the officers were developing a plan to go in and take action, two men actually came out on the front porch, and one of them shot the other one in the presence of the officers. The offender then immediately ran inside and barricaded himself in the house. The officers were able to bring that man off the porch, give him immediate first aid. Our officers all carry individual first aid kits with things like tourniquets and chest seals and things. So they use their emergency first aid training to comfort him and to, what's the word I'm looking for, to provide some immediate assistance for what could have been a deadly chest injury. It was a through-and-through gunshot wound to the chest. So they were able to provide him that first aid and threw him in the back of a police car, not threw him, they brought him into the back of a police car and took him to the hospital, because oftentimes doing that, the difference between life and death is often the moments that it would take while they were waiting for an ambulance to arrive. And so the officers have the ability to make that call and say, this individual has this life-threatening injury, and if the hospital's only a minute and a half away and the ambulance is 2 minutes away, we're going to take him directly to the hospital. That's what they did, and he's expected to make a full recovery.
I didn't realize that's what we talked about earlier.
Yeah. That's okay. I should have expanded it more, so you can ask me. That's no problem. Ask me again, and maybe I won't fumble in the middle of it.
Yeah, we'll make sure that we don't look at it. Are the domestic violence incidences on an uptick?
We haven't seen a trend of domestic violence increase for the year so far, but it's still early in the year. We're still in January. Last year, we did see an increase in violence, not just in Grand Rapids, but really across all of Kent County. So it's an alarming thing. Some people across the country have blamed, coming out of COVID. I don't really know what the answer is, but it is important for everyone to know that if you're in an abusive relationship, there are resources out there. There are places for you to go, today. You don't have to stay in that house today. Someone will make sure that you're accommodated, you have a safe place to stay, and there's so many resources out there. We just really need victims of domestic violence to know, because too many times we've seen them in Grand Rapids and elsewhere turn deadly.
Okay.
Yeah.
You're talking
No,
about
that's
this.
right.
The update on the Division Street shooting, did we talk about that one already or not?
Just a little bit. So update on the Division Street shooting is, we've identified the victim, Jontel White. Jontel was a father of two young girls. He was apparently targeted in this shooting. We're doing everything we can. It's still a very open investigation, but we're moving as quickly as we can on it to identify this offender and place him into custody so that we can provide some justice for this grieving family.
Okay, and then, one more switcheroo.
Yep.
They wanted me to ask about,
Sure.
Responded to a middle school today where a teen was found with a gun.
Yep.
And talk about your response.
Yeah, we do. So anytime there's a gun recovered at a Grand Rapids, whether it's public school or private school, police will come and will take possession of that gun. So we didn't stop this child. Grand Rapids Public School Safety Department, we have a very good, close working relationship with them. They have those close connections with the student in the school, so my understanding was there was no violence involved in the arrest of this individual. The gun was safely removed. Our officers were called. We took possession of the guns, and because of the age of the child, I can't get into too many details of who he is or everything surrounding the incident, but it'll likely be referred through the juvenile criminal justice system for appropriate services.
So you won't be able to, they have on here, do we know what the teen's intent was?
That I don't know. I simply don't know the teen's intent. However, what I can confirm that it was a real functioning loaded handgun. So extremely dangerous to have in a school, extremely dangerous to have in the possession of anyone who's not trained to use it, much more so a 13-year-old in a school.
And the last question is, what would you say to parents of the kids that go to that school about that situation?
Well, I'll say when I first heard about it, my initial reaction was, is it a student? Is it somebody from the outside? What were the intention? Because then you get a broader idea of, is this something that could have turned into a school violence incident? I don't think that's the case. I think that there was no intent to use this gun inside the school. There was no brandishing of the gun or anything like that. And clearly the system worked how it's supposed to work, where we got the information that this youngster did potentially have a firearm. We were able to GRPS actually was able to safely secure it without any violence, without the gun going off or anything like that. So it seemed like the safety features of this system worked very well today, and I don't think there's anything to be concerned about as a safety matter going forward for any of the families in that school.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Oh, that was quick and painless.
Unless you